being held on Thursday the 20th of July 2023. My name is Councillor Paul Baker. I'm the Chairman of the committee. The meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast on its YouTube channel. If you make representation to the meeting, you are consenting to the use of those sound recordings for broadcasting and training purposes. If there are any breaks in the transmission to the YouTube stream, the meeting will be adjourned for a short period until any issues are resolved. There is no fire alarm scheduled for today, so if the alarm does sound, please follow the officers to the nearest exit. Okay, thank you. I just want to kick off by making reference to Councillor John Payne. As you know, John's been absent for a few meetings, and he has now resigned from the planning committee because of commitments, because of personal family commitments. So I just want to acknowledge John's fantastic contribution to this committee, always respected whatever he said, and he will be missed, and I wish him and his mum well. Okay, we then go on to agenda item 1, which is apologies. Apologies from Councillor McCloskey and Councillor Wheeler, and Councillor Clark is attending as a substitute for Councillor Wheeler. Okay, agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Any declarations? Nope. Okay. Agenda item 3, declaration of independent site visits. Hang on, one at a time. Councillor Clark.
I went to Lincoln Avenue.
Councillor Andrews.
Visited the Rodney Road site.
And Councillor Barnes.
I've been to both applications.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Bamford, sorry.
Yeah, I saw Rodney Road via the planning view, but I also visited Lincoln Avenue subsequently to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just stress the importance of planning view, particularly on these two, because you needed to go into the backs of the properties to actually properly view what was being planned. But I appreciate we can't always make planning view due to the time, but it is important to try and attend when we can. Agenda item 4, minutes for last meeting. Everybody happy with those? Okay, lovely. I'll sign those then as a correct record. Thank you. Agenda item 5, public questions. Not sure why that's on here, but
We've been told to put back into the agenda, just in case members of the public do have questions for the planning committee.
okay. They had to be scheduled in advance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We now move on then to the first planning application, which is 3 Trelawn Court, and I'll ask Michelle Payne to introduce the application.
Thank you, Chair. So this application proposes the erection of a single-storey extension to the rear of both 3 and 4 Trelawn Court. The application is at Planning Committee at the request of Councillor Doby due to concerns in relation to privacy and overlooking. So the site is located on the southeastern side of Rodney Road within the central conservation area and comprises 2 modern terraced townhouses. To the rear, the site extends through to Cambray Place with a public footpath running alongside the boundary to number 4. So here we've just got a 3D image to show the rear of the properties and their neighbours. And then some photos were taken on site with the view towards number 2 seen in the photo on the right. And then here we've got the existing and proposed block plan, so you can see the footprint of the proposed extensions in blue. And then the ground floor plan as proposed. And then this is just the existing and proposed elevations with the proposed extension identified in the red circles. So the officer recommendation is to grant planning permission, subject to the conditions in the report. The development accords with all relevant national and local planning policy. In terms of design, the extension would have a flat roof with white rendered elevations to reflect the contemporary design of the existing terrace. And although the extension would adopt a fairly large footprint, it can easily be accommodated within the site and would clearly read as subservient later addition, with only limited views available from the conservation area, thereby ensuring that no harm would be caused to both the conservation area or the setting of nearby listed buildings. The amenity impacts have been carefully considered, but for the reasons set out within the officer report, officers are satisfied that there would be no significant impact in terms of privacy, outlook or daylight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions, members? Councillor Fisher?
I see it's on now. SD8 says that in a conservation area there should be conservation gain, but I can see no gain in this. I just wondered how, you know, it's a modern building, so I don't think SD8 applies, but it is there, and it said there should be a conservation gain.
Sorry, Michelle, yeah. No other questions? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so SD8 sort of requires development to make a positive contribution. The statutory duty of the authority is to ensure that developments preserve or enhance. That's the statutory duty under the Planning, Conservation Areas and Listed Buildings Act. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't want to see harm to the conservation area, yeah.
Okay, no other questions? Anybody debate? I'll go move straight to the recommendation then, which is to permit. Those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We then move on to the next item, which is 14 Lincoln Avenue. And again, I'll ask Michelle to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. So this application proposes the erection of a two-storey side and single-storey rear extension to number 14 Lincoln Avenue. The application is at Planning Committee at the request of Councillor Beale due to concerns relating to a reduction in daylight and the potential impact on the quality of life for the occupiers of the neighbouring bungalow. And the Parish Council have also objected as they consider the proposals to be an overdevelopment of the site that would result in a loss of light. So the site's located on the eastern side of Lincoln Avenue and comprises a semi-detached two-storey dwelling with attached garage. And to the rear, the site backs onto the Warden Hill Primary School grounds. So here we've just got a Google Street View image to show the application site and the neighbouring bungalow, number 12 Lincoln Avenue, which you can see sits at a slightly lower level than the application site, approximately 300 mil. And then we've got a 3D image again just to show the rear of the properties and the relationship with neighbours. And then this is a photo taken from the rear of number 12 looking back across towards the site. So here we've got the existing and proposed block plan with the footprint of the extensions at ground floor shown in red. And then the existing and proposed ground floor plans. And then the first floor. And then we've got the elevations. So here we've got the front and side elevation as viewed from number 12. And then the rear elevation. And the view from number 16, which is largely unaltered. And so the key matters for consideration are design and amenity. The proposals are considered to be wholly acceptable from a design perspective. the extensions would be clearly subservient to the existing building, and all materials used in the external construction would match existing, to ensure that the overall character of the property is maintained. The more contemporary design approach to the rear, together with the flat roof, is considered to be acceptable where there's only limited views available from the public realm. Again, the amenity impacts of the development on the neighbouring properties, and in particular number 12 Lincoln Avenue, have been carefully considered, but for the reasons set out in the report, officers are satisfied that the proposals wouldn't result in any significant harm. The officer recommendation, therefore, is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions set out in the report. It's acknowledged by officers that additional concerns have been raised in relation to sewerage and drainage, but this is a matter for building regulations should permission be granted. If any Severn Trent water assets were to be affected by the works, the applicant would need to contact Severn Trent separately outside of the planning application.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions, first of all? Councillor Seacombe?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. You mentioned a drop of 300 mil. Would it not be easier for us to contemplate it if you said 30 centimetres, which is the length of one school ruler, and that's more amenable. And, you know, we've had this before with other measurements given, so I think...
You're old-fashioned.
I'd prefer feet and inches, for honest.
Well,
But,
I wasn't going to go back.
Michelle, can you just confirm it's about the light test? Because the Parish Council referred to the loss of light, didn't they?
Yep, thank you. So the concerns raised by the neighbour relate to the impact on windows in their side elevation. There's a hallway, bathroom, and a light source that they refer to as the kitchen. There's a sort of small bay or porch being built outside the external door, which would be affected by the extension. But the main window to the kitchen is in the rear elevation and would be unharmed by the proposals in terms of the 45-degree light test that we used to assess the impact.
Thank you very much. So, no other questions? We're going to debate. Oh, was there a question? To debate then, Councillor Oliver.
Thanks, Chair. A lot of the decisions we make are on small margins. Looking at this, I think because of the size of the plot that we're talking about, we've got a bungalow which is slightly lower next to a house which is going to have a two-storey extension right next to it, overlooking a small back garden which the neighbours use a lot, and so it's effectively part of their home. And to me, I think this is significant harm and on the neighbouring amenity. I think it's unacceptable harm, and I think I'm minded to refuse it. I'm also interested in the drains from another point of view. I know it's not a planning issue, but from being ward councillor in Warden Hill, I know that there are a lot of problems with the drains, so I'd like to see, if this was passed, that the drain situation was examined and followed through by building control. Thank you.
Just to be clear, there are no windows on the elevation looking into that neighbouring property. Sorry, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. I share Councillor Oliver's concerns, and having done Plan View, I think is, as you said at the beginning, Plan View is vital to make educated debate and decisions in this meeting. The planning officer talks about the extension of number 14 not being or being subservient, but that extension is certainly not going to be subservient to the bungalow next door. And there's a row of bungalows, and then the first semi-detached, and then there's a few semi-detached, then it goes away again. as Councillor Oliver says, that there is the source, I did send a question into the planning officer earlier today questioning the light source, because in her report she talks about the bay window being a kitchen window, but it's not. It's the window for the porch, and there's a back door, and then between the side porch and the kitchen, there is a folding door, a two-way bifold door, which is solid. And so in the winter, that would probably be closed for the heat. So there would be the single light source, as the planning officer says. The single window at the back would be the only light source. And there'll be a great big two-storey solid wall, which will take a lot of that light. So I believe it is overbearing, it is overdevelopment, and I would refer the committee to page 32, which is one of the appeals where the planning inspector has refused the appeal, has not allowed the appeal on the basis of amenity and loss of light. So I do think we have a strong case for this one, and I would join my fellow in front and be minded to object. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Clark?
I'm more concerned about the sewage, actually. I feel...
Councillor Clark, that's not a planning issue. So
No, I understand.
No, we're not
it
here
isn't.
to discuss sewage.
We can't discuss it.
No,
We can't condition it.
It's
that
not-
there's
no.
an inspection.
no.
Okay.
I'm sorry to cut you short, but we have to talk about planning. So,
Thank you, Chair. Just to reassure Councillor Barnes, that was one of the things I did query with the planning officer earlier, and I said, could we condition it, and was no, but we can possibly use an informative to remind the applicant to obtain other consent, remind the applicant of the need to contact Severn Trent Water, which is what's in one of the statutory consultee comments. I would just add another thing, is that in that property, the bungalow, there is an office on, and it has a light at the top. What do you call them? I can't think of the word now. A ceiling light thing, a window, and that would be very much obscured by the wall. That's it. Thank you.
can you turn off your... Thank you. I think we need to be careful about loss of light because the primary window is the back window. This is a kitchen, not a dwelling room. So, you know, the primary source of light is not impacted in any way by this development. So we just have to be careful on what we're doing. So is there any other comments before we go to the vote? So in that case, then the recommendation is to permit. Those in favour, please. Five. Those against? 4. So that is permitted. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now go on to appeal. The appeal updates, they've all been circulated. And finally, agenda item 8, any other items the chairman determines urgent? I do not have any. So thank you all very much for your attendance.